Welcome, Nancy. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So you've been an inspiration for me. I've looked up to you for a few years, even though we really only connected this past spring.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I feel the same about you. And I think, what's really amazing as we live our life and we connect with new people and the whole idea of, meeting people for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And our paths cross when they're meant to. And then how can we learn from those and just really tap into that friendship or the lessons we're meant to receive and grow together. I grew up on a farm, and my husband and I actually bought 6 acres from part of that family farm. So I've been on our family farm pretty much most of my life in one corner of the farm, right? The homestead had been a 4-generation family farm. After my father passed away, my mother kept managing it from a standpoint of rentals to other family farmers or local farmers. And after she passed away in 2020, I had just talked to her right before she passed away about turning the homestead, turning the home that I grew up in into sort of a retreat center. And so my sister and I really put some effort into that. We had done some work around setting it up so that I could host small retreats, just real intimate space for a small group of women or couples who wanted to do some vision planning together. And we did some remodeling and I held several retreats. I did a mother-daughter retreat, a reflect and reset retreat, a vision to decision retreat, and just loved it. And the longer that time went on and I discovered how much more I would have to put into the home to really turn it into a real retreat center, it was going to be quite an investment. And my family, my siblings were like, it's time to let go. They were already much sooner than I was. So yeah, it's been really a journey. And now we actually sold it to an Amish family. And so it's just been a delight seeing them go back to the basics, seeing the farm being worked, the field being plowed with, horse-drawn plow, and at times even a hand, when they're out in the little corners of it, getting every inch of the land they can to serve and grow product and produce for our survival, which is it's really fun to see. And the thing that really makes my heart happy is, so my grandmother was a school teacher, and she taught in our valley at the Union Valley School. No longer exists, but she actually met my grandfather. He was in the community play that she directed at the school. Okay, so that's how they met. And so she was a teacher, and I, as a little girl, would always go to her side of the house, which is where the retreat center ended up being, on Grandma's side. I would look at her teacher books and look through, the math lessons and the English lessons, and, just really enjoy these black bound teacher books from 1916, right?
Of it.
Yeah. And it's just really cool. Well, when I went to visit the Amish family about 2 months ago, it was on a weekday, and they host school now in my grandmother's living room. That's where their school is set up. And so here I'm like, how full circle is that?
Is there a book coming with this information? Like, I feel like this is like a story in one of your books that might be coming in the future.
Boy.
Like, are you kidding? Like,
Yeah.
because it's almost like you have a tunnel vision into the past.
I'm not quite there yet. However, I've been leaning towards, wouldn't it be cool to tell the story from now, the Amish bringing it back full circle, and so doing something with that history of my great-grandparents' generation, and then how they lived, and then bringing it back to now today, in today's world, and how the simplicity of life can just bring so much value to your heart. And I think we lose that in our fast-paced world.
I know that a big part of like this time of year, getting into summer, is just being out and underneath the stars, and how it evokes this piece of magic that nothing else will do for me, to realize here we are. Yes. And it's magic that you and I are right here right now talking. Like you can break it down into these small little pieces and realize how amazing it is just to be alive.
I love that you said, here you are, right? And it makes me think of when we're walking, if you're at a park and they've got the, you are here. But I love the, here you are. Like instead of, you're here on this map, here you are.
What are some of the ways that you've worked through some of that self-talk, that dialogue that tends to hold us back so that you can follow your own path because you're obviously on it?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, lots of ways, and it's changed over time, right? There's this, we have to be aware that something's holding us back. And so a time for me when I really felt that was when things were changing at a place that I was working. And my boss said to me one day, "What are you so afraid of?" And I remember just getting really defensive and say, "I'm not afraid. Like, who are you to tell me I'm afraid?" Which, of course, right there is a sign of fear, right? And so that was an opening for me to step into, what am I afraid of? And to not try to cover that up anymore. And to start to explore, where do those fears come from? So it was after that I started what I call my happiness journey, which is really a funny thing to call it because I was pretty happy. I've lived a pretty fulfilling life. I have a lot of blessings and just a lot of reasons to be very happy. But what I was learning is that that's our subconscious, all those hidden messages, the things that happened years ago to us to serve us in one moment that were stopping me from being my best self in the current moment. And so how do I work through that? I'm still working through it. I mean, I think it's that's one of those things we will always be working through because it's our human nature to just wonder and worry and, just there's so many perceptions out there now too, and people aren't afraid to share them. So they're going to tell you what they think about how you are and how you show up. And so then all that gets inside of our brain. So working through those fears for me is, and I think you've talked about this too, Stephanie, journaling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big, not only in the journaling, but the gratitudes, right?
Oh my gosh.
When we can focus in on something so simple in our lives, like a toothbrush. I'm so thankful that I can clean my teeth with this brush, right? Or just small things like that are making a big impact in our life.
I'm super introverted, but I enjoy going to networking situations because I learn so much and I realize that my struggles are not my struggles. We all have the same struggles.
Yeah. I love that you say that because I'm an introvert too, and I don't love going to networking. However, I don't love the act of it, but I love the community of it. I love the spirit of it. And it was one of the biggest changes I had to make when I launched my business 7 years ago was, I had always worked with a team, with people I could walk down the hall and consult with and talk to and collaborate, right? Laugh with. And now here I am in my home, and then, shortly after COVID strikes and everybody's in their home and I'm trying to figure out, and what I learned, just what I learned about myself is that, well, when I'm with people, that actually helps me process. That actually helps me determine more of who I am and what I believe. And so hearing the various perspectives is a way to get closer to who I really am and what's important to me and draw out more of that.
So I do this podcast and it's a lot of work. And then I go to Madison and I talk to people and they're like, well, I do 3 podcasts a week. It's like, for crying out loud. You're awesome. Thank you.
And what does Stephanie do that they're not doing?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
All the
That's
other things.
theirs to do.
Yeah. But it's just so helpful. Then it's like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not crazy for trying to do all this stuff on my own. This is just what I'm doing.
Yes.
And everybody's just doing.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Yeah. It is. And I like to call that kind of like following the path that unfolds for you, right? And I know you've recently talked to Tina Hallis and had coffee with her, and she's one of the people who really supported me in the startup of my business and helped me see that, things aren't going to go the way I planned today. Or, when I started 7 years ago, pretty much my entire business is different other than I still do some one-on-one coaching, right? But I'm taking a step and what feels right. Does this align with me? Is this, where I want to head next? What am I being called to try? Ooh, that feels scary right now. And so that fear is real but that's also growth.
Yeah.
That fear is helping us step into our growth. And pretty soon, whatever the fear is today will be something that we're naturally doing because we did step into it. And it's taken us to a higher level of understanding of who we are.
Yeah. And I think that fear is really just power. Yeah. We label it something because that's what we've been taught to label it. But it really, when you take out the word fear and you just feel it, you can feel that whatever, it's like, whoa, that is like powerful energy in there. Like, what else can I do with that? Like, how can I turn that into something else? And
yeah, and that's right there, that's the question, right? When you feel it, just say to yourself, so what are you trying to tell me right now? What's here for me to learn?
I always get stuck in I should be further along. I should be. And then with fear, I can either take that and wound myself right up into being like, yeah, you should be better, you should be this, or I can take it and dissect it and find the joy and the peace that comes in from dissecting it, because then all of a sudden you can look around and you can use that power for gratitude, or you can use that power for abundance. Or
I like to call that practice. I look at our life as like one big practice. Like we're practicing, how we want to be, who we want to become all the time. And so, when you were asking, like, how do I work through the fears? That's one, is I practice. I practice that mindset shift. I practice, the writing down my gratitudes. I practice tuning into that feeling. And I'm going to tell you, most of the time, I don't get it right. It's work. It's work to remind myself I'm practicing this right now. I'm practicing the mindset shift. I'm practicing to shift from that negative thought to a positive thought without it becoming what now has become termed toxic positivity if you're faking it. Like if I'm faking positivity, that's not it.
Right.
That's not the goal. The goal is to see it differently. I've studied positive intelligence under Shirzad Chamine and took his coaching course, which is all about identifying, being able to it's heightening your awareness, acknowledge that feeling is there, identify, you might be able to identify what's causing it, but a lot of times you can't. But remind yourself there's a new thought coming. That saboteur, that's part of your inner wisdom. It has protected you from something, and now you have new wisdom. So what's going to serve you now?
Let's change subjects a little bit, because you brought me 2 of your books, and tell me about your writing process.
I am learning a lot about writing. First of all, I never thought I was going to write a book. My primary reason for writing my first book, Acres of Life, was to have a memoir from my family. And it was also very healing. I didn't know that at the time that I was doing it to heal, but I was. And I wanted to capture the stories and the memories of the history of my family and what I knew, which was very little of what it all was, right? So I did that, and now I look back on that book and I'm like, ooh, I would change that, right? And I could certainly be a stronger writer and a stronger storyteller. Never thought I would write another book. And, as I was coaching, and here's the thing, I developed my coaching practice, and my whole goal is to serve others, right? And I'm a big believer that people deserve someone in their corner. And so everybody should have someone who is going to bat for them, and hopefully more than one, right? But that's my belief. And so I believe that sometimes I'm the one that's being called to serve this person in this moment. And what I didn't realize is I was going to learn more about myself in that process than I could ever help anybody else. And I have come into more of who I am and getting more comfortable with that. It's still not, and I think that's always be getting more comfortable with who we are. But the more we find out who we are, the more we become who we are, and then we learn more about who we're meant to be. And, whether it's peeling back the layers or, getting into the depths of the ocean. I don't know, what you want to call it, but it's an unfurling. I'm not sure if that's the right word either. Just a continuous discovery. It's a discovery, right? And so just being in tune with that took me to this place of I started to identify these tools that I was using for other people that actually were helping me even more. And that's when I created this kind of gem design. And I've always said, like, you are a gem. You have treasures inside of you that you will never know. They're just waiting to light up. They're waiting to be used. And so I designed this way to try to pull those out and to see what your gems are for now that you can see, and then let those flourish and do something with those and build upon them. And then what else shows up as you let those flourish? And how can you just keep going into your heart center to design who you're meant to be and how you're meant to shine in the world? So that's what took me into, okay, I want to share this. And I felt like it was a framework that can be used on repeat. I had a framework that people can use repeatedly because we never arrive. We're never there. We want a destination, but there's milestones along the way that are destinations. And then there's the journey. The whole journey is just knowing that there's always more. There's always more. And so the real framework came about. Actually, I had a calling for that right when I started my business. I was going to call my business Real Coaching. Well, then I started researching it, and everything that popped up was on real estate because of the RE, and then I was like, okay. Well, the good news is it probably wasn't meant to be called Real Coaching at the time because I wasn't really ready. I didn't really know what real meant. Now I've got this kind of process and framework around it. So real, I use reflect, engage, align, and lead. And so again, a tool to use when you're stepping into fear is you can always pause, reflect. Where's this feeling coming from? Engage with yourself. What's this feeling about? Where is that coming from? What do I really want? What am I being called to? Why am I afraid of that, right? And then aligning. So for now, what's a step I can take that has me feeling aligned to what is changing and shifting? And then taking action, leading yourself, take some action. And I started using the framework with companies too. I had a long-term career, 26-year career with one company that I loved and that I was very engaged in, and I felt like I belonged, and I thought I was going to retire there. And that didn't work out. Things changed, and the company expanded and then downsized, and I was part of that, downsizing. So I found another job. I was really intentional about finding this job, and it was really fine for the first couple of years, but it really wasn't aligned with who I was, and I wasn't really seen or heard there. I felt like I wasn't making an impact, attempting to make an impact, but really at one point was just told, no, that's not your role. Don't even do that. So I realized that felt really crummy. And that's how most people feel in their workplace. Mm-hmm. At any one point in time, I've heard statistics, 52% of people feel lonely at work. Well, how sad is that? Mm-hmm. Here you are with a group of people, yet you feel alone. I was so blessed to have these 26 years where I was seen. I was challenged. I grew. I had opportunity, and I got to make a difference. So I decided that's what I want to help people do that. I want to help people find the place for them where they're going to be seen, find that alignment in what brings them joy to, in their work. And I wanted to just really inspire women that you can have this, especially women, that you can have this, because I think there's just a lot of things that are going on, a lot of dynamics playing out in a workplace with power struggles. When I started with people are struggling, they're desperate, they don't feel good about themselves, a lot of the self-doubt stuff, and did a lot of that for really my first 4 or 5 years. It was all about helping people work through the self-doubt. What I found in that is that there were certain clients that I really enjoyed working with more than others. And they were the people who were dreamers, and they wanted to make an impact themselves, just wanting to be seen in their workplace for themselves, but they wanted to be seen so that they could impact something else, something bigger than them. So I started finding more of those people, and now I have what I call my legacy client program. And legacy clients are people who want to live in their legacy every day. They're not trying to leave a legacy. They're living something. They're living in their legacy so that when they leave, people see them as the legacy. What I'm finding is that the best way to identify those people is to go into the workplace and work with teams. And it's pretty clear when people are committed to a mission, how they're showing up, and then helping them just really tap into how they can use their own talents within that commitment that they're already making so that they can make a bigger impact. From there, I tend to get the one-on-one clients who are saying, yeah, I want more of that. I want to have more of what I'm doing in my workplace in the rest of my life. And then my big belief is just that teams have so much uniqueness on them and we don't tap into it. My tagline is honor your uniqueness to nurture your greatness. And in the workplace, that's honor the uniqueness of your team members to nurture the collective greatness. I love to help people develop and grow. And what I've discovered is, like, I love self-help books. And I used to never want to go get them because I thought, oh, that's just weird. You know?
Yeah, as you're like walking to the section, you're like, oh, who's looking at me?
Yeah.
But I love self-help books.
Yeah. And we're gifted with that. That's what we're supposed to love and tap into. That's part, that's what we're close to. So get closer to that and use those talents even more, right? Yes, we can, there's other skills we need to learn along the way. And boy, have I, running a business isn't for light of heart. There's a lot that goes into it.
What do you have kind of next? What's 2025 goals?
I am writing my next book. So I have an advisory board right now who's supporting me in the development of that because I realized, I've been out of the corporate world for 7 years. And a lot's changed in 7 years. We're post-COVID now. We're AI now. That wasn't happening the way it is now. So I have an advisory board just helping me see the insights to how these things show up in the workplace today and how to navigate them. So that's my big project for this year, along with I'm stepping into speaking. And that's where my fear is right now. I know I have a message to share, and I know I have a lot of skill to develop around articulating that message. Articulation does not always come easy to me, and that's where I overthink and go to my saboteurs and my imposter syndrome, right? So I have some skills to develop around what's the message I want to really share? And then how do I want to do that in a way that is of service to others to really tap into who they are?
Keep going with it. You're doing great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And having the support is so valuable in our, being reminded that we do have what it takes. You do, I do. We have what we need to give our gifts.
We're always practicing.
Yes. We're always practicing, and practice leads to growth.
Yeah. What advice would you give yourself if you were 20 years old?
I would tell myself to go inside instead of outside for the love, the information, the wisdom. I always have stepped through fear. I've always just done things because I'm resilient. That's what you do. That's what farm girls do, right? Like you step up, you do what you need to do, you get the work done, right? And that's what I was taught. Like if you're sick, you still get out there and milk the cows. But I didn't have confidence in myself and who I was and what I really wanted. My first job, and the one that lasted me the 26 years, first real corporate job, right? I had other part-time jobs before that, but I followed my sister. My sister was working there, and they literally called me up and said, well, actually, two sisters were working there at the time. And they literally said, hey, you got two sisters who work here. They're doing a pretty good job. Do you want to come work here? So that must mean, yeah, right? I follow my sisters. I'm good because they're good. And that's pretty much the story of my life. I was the seventh of 8 children. So I was good because of them. I knew what I was doing because they knew what they were doing. Or I wasn't because, of who they were, right? Like I was seen as them instead of me. And so it was always hidden. Yeah, and I think it's meant to be part of our journey. We come into this world and we're very dependent. We have to in order to survive. We're dependent. And then we learn how to become dependent on other people, which starts to become other people's thoughts. instead of our own. And then, so we're doing a lot of unlearning
Yeah.
to really uncover who we are so that we can be truly independent. I mean, what is independent? There's a freedom in that, but it's knowing who you are.